A couple of your favorite VR creators, and I was one of them, actually got invited to go up to Seattle to Camouflage Studios to try an early build of Batman Arkham Shadow long before it comes out. We got to roll up there, Wolf in VR, Mateo, Otterworldly, and all of us spent the day at Camouflage hanging out, talking about Batman Arkham Shadow that's coming up, trying out the game, getting to play a demo, an early release build of it, and there's a lot to talk about from what we got to do. And since then, there's also been a full gameplay trailer drop so you can see the gameplay, but we'll talk through here how it felt, what I got to see from what I did in it, and then any hopes about what it means that it's only coming to Quest 3. Does that mean any other headsets, when it's going to launch, and all that too. So first, let's talk about the fact that it's only on Quest 3, which does mean that not having to develop it also for the Quest 2 meant it did look really good. It's still not quite PC VR levels of graphics or even like Red Matter 2 that's heavily optimized for the Quest, but it still looked really great. The shadows in it, the reflections in the game, the character models, the game looked much better than I expected, and for a standalone Quest game, I feel like with the graphical quality, most people aren't going to miss the fact that they're not going to play this on PSVR 2 or PC, at least for now. The demo I got to try was like maybe the first 40 minutes of the game, but it didn't let us watch any of the cinematics or see any of that. It was really only the gameplay we were feeling. And right off the bat, when you get in, there was some interesting choices they made. So one, in a game that has smooth turns in VR, it usually, you turn the stick, you let go of the stick, and your character immediately stops. There was an inertia in the turning, and so this meant that you turn the stick really hard, Batman would be turning, and you would let go, and it would still continue to turn a little bit.
You put inertia to the turning. That's an unusual choice for a VR game.
This isn't unusual in gaming, period, but in VR games, usually it's really one-to-one with the motion, so that was something that kind of surprised me. But the fact that the game really allows you to be the Batman, it allows you to use your grappling hook, and it pulls you through the actual environment.
I love that the grappling hook just fully immerses you. I'm so glad you didn't skip it.
It doesn't hold your hand, but it does have comfort modes to make it easier, because for some people, that's going to be a lot of motion, where other people like me wanted it to be as immersive and intense as possible. I want to see that, I want to feel that, I want to see the gliding and everything. So I immediately turned all the vignettes and everything off I could in the game.
Am I allowed to disable the vignette?
Yeah.
Comfort and turn it off. Turn it all off. Oh, yes.
I did play the game standing as I would most games, and that meant when it came time to crouch, I wanted to try and just duck down, go through alleyways, crawl through stuff. But one thing I noticed pretty quickly was real life crouching kind of made you crouch in the game, but then when you stood back up, it wouldn't recognize that you now stood all the way back up, and you have to press the game to uncrouch.
Real life crouching also works. I like that. Is there any chance if people opt to crouch in real life when they stand, they can come back without having to click?
I think that you're always gonna have to click.
Okay, so really people probably shouldn't be crouching for real. They should just use the button.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have got that feedback recently, so.
Again, remember, this is early, and I gave them a lot of feedback while I was testing, although they're only maybe 2 months out from launch at that time, so I don't know how much of it they'd be able to implement.
I keep trying to use the trigger to shoot that grapple. I'll get used to it, but that feels a little unusual to me.
But I was kind of hoping that if you're gonna really play standing, crouch works, crouch standing up works, but really that was one thing I had to learn, to just use the click and don't try to actually duck under things.
Yeah, I think that'd be nice. For people who stand and play, like, crouching in real life is pretty cool, and if you can just stand back up, it's gonna work really well.
The game has physics to it, especially in the combat. We'll talk about the combat a lot more in depth, but like your hands would stop if you push them against something. Although there was some objects, like if you knock somebody out, you could pass your hand through them, but you could still play with the physics of their body, so that was cool. Anytime you get some ragdoll physics with enemies, people are gonna be playing around with those, so that was really fun.
The ragdoll bodies after you're done with them are kind of great. You can actually kind of interact with the body too.
The running in the game, the movement let you actually move around decently quickly. It still wasn't like a full-on sprint, but it didn't feel like you were stuck walking everywhere, which was great, because when you're Batman, you should be moving fast. There was also some abilities to like quickly bolt to the sides and dodge attacks.
What the heck was, so side to side or back, clicking the stick, you kind of jump out of the way of attacks.
Although it didn't seem that there was a jumping button. Jumping was more automatic if you got to a gap and you pressed it, or the glide motion wasn't something you could just do from anywhere. The glide motion, you had to be at a ledge that was supposed to happen. And again, some weird choices here. To enable the glide, you had to reach back, grab your cape, open it up, and then you jump down and fly down with the glide. But you used the triggers to grab the cape instead of the grip buttons. I gave them that feedback too. I was like,
I'm curious why when you grab the cape, it's not the grips and it's the triggers.
That's other fairly consistent feedback.
Okay.
But the grip buttons are used for a lot of things, from like your batarangs and certain equipment.
Batarangs or grip. I guess maybe that might also, I know there can be issues if you have to grab different things in different spots, but.
So maybe they were worried reaching back, you'd be grabbing something else. The game is going to be a whole different variety of things, from like solving mysteries, looking at mechanics, like puzzles, such as environmental puzzles, like following a wire through the wall and figuring out what you have to do to get a door open. But the biggest part of the game loop is definitely going to be the combat. And the combat felt pretty good.
Okay, that's pretty hilarious. Beat them while they're down. Oh geez, oh geez, okay. I like the knee, that's pretty sweet.
So the combat is very visceral, it's very real. When people were gonna have this demo, I told them I wouldn't tell them any spoilers about it, but I warned them maybe bring a change of shirt, because you are gonna be sweating, you are gonna be moving depending on how into the game you get.
Whew. You guys keep sweat towels handy during these demos? Thank you. I may want that again. I'll probably lose that the first time I get into combat though.
The game feels so good in the combat that I felt like I really wanted to get into it. I wanted to throw real punches, and before you know it, you're just completely sweaty in the headset. The combat does work through prompts, so it's not just a slapping simulator. You'll have people in front of you that you'll be throwing punches, and the punches have to be very deliberate when you're throwing them. If you try to throw too fast, it'll say too fast. So if you just try to slap simulate, it'll stop you.
When it says too fast, does that mean I'm doing it too soon, or does that mean I'm actually punching too fast? Sorry, did someone respond to that question?
Yeah, too soon.
Okay, I was busy punching people, my bad.
They're deliberately placed punches that are aimed specifically at reticles and potentially in an order. And that was probably the thing that all of us testing it out found the most immersive breaking until you kind of learn the timing. You'd want to throw your punches too fast and it would try to slow you down. But they said they really wanted to create them like Batman would, where each punch is deliberate, intentional, and powerful, not just quickly throwing their hands around. The combat is based on your gaze. So which enemy you're looking at is the one, if you punch forward, you're gonna dash punch across the room at them. But this did mean that sometimes when I was first starting out, my head was down as I went to tuck my head as I went to reach for a punch, and then my gaze went off the enemy and then the punch didn't work.
I'm wanting to drop my head when I punch, and it's throwing the punches.
Yeah, because it's the reticles going, it's wondering if you're looking somewhere else. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you have any sort of real life boxing training or anything where you're trying to keep your head on, it might actually mess you up. You have to like keep facing your head directly at your enemies, not necessarily your eyes. That's where I was thinking how this could really benefit from eye tracking. Sadly, the Quest 3 doesn't have it, but I was like, if it used eye tracking to actually track which enemies you are punching, it would feel way more immersive, because your head, if you tuck it down and turn, it's gonna think you're looking at the floor and your punch is no longer gonna work. I gave him some feedback around that, but it's not really something that could be changed easily. But basically, you look at your enemy, you lock in your fist, and then when you throw that fist, you're gonna bolt directly at that enemy. But you're fighting multiple enemies at one time, so when an enemy is on your side, there'll be a prompt that's saying, hey, someone's about to punch you from this side, and if you throw your hand back, you'll go into a block or a counter. This is the one time it would force you to turn automatically towards that enemy you just blocked, which makes sense why it does that in the game, but it could be something that people find more disorienting. But the combat, once you get used to it, feels really cool. Punching enemies, you can get them on the ground and you're repeatedly beating them in the face while they're down.
Dude doesn't want me to beat his friend while he's down. Come on. Combat is very satisfying. Takes a minute to get used to it, but it is satisfying. This is gonna be a combo action and a little bit of fitness game too, so.
You can knee, you can kick, you can grab somebody and break their knee.
Oh, is that about to be a knee break right there?
It's very intense combat and it works. It doubles as fitness and it feels very satisfying while you're doing it.
I'm getting too into it. I lost my mic. There's a lot of people around.
It is the one thing that I do worry in the long run might become a bit more repetitive in the game as you're repeatedly fighting rooms of enemies. But they said a lot that you can unlock. There's going to be new equipment and things that are going to help keep that fresh as you go throughout the game. But I think if you weren't going into it thinking it was going to be a lot of combat and a lot of fighting, it might get a little redundant to you. Another thing that I liked was that there's a detective mode that you use for solving puzzles, but if you pull that up while you're actually fighting enemies, you can see their vitals and other stuff about them. The problem was when you went back to punching them, it took you out of that detective mode. I wanted times where it would stay that way.
Oh, what the? Okay, that is really cool. So you can see their vitals if you go into detective mode in a fight. Come on, you're fighting Batman, your heart rate's only 120? I imagine it might be too resource heavy, but I would love to stay in this vision if I wanted to in a fight.
It'd be really cool if it like showed their bones when you like break bones, but the detective mode is really more for when you're trying to solve puzzles, not necessarily during fights. Then there's this whole predator mode, so that's also works in the combat, but it's when you're wanting to be stealthy in combat. That probably had the biggest learning curve in the game overall, because you really had to learn what kind of deliberate moves you do if you want to do a takedown on someone, a silent takedown, if you want to grab them and choke them out, or if you want to throw them off a ledge and tie them up underneath it. That one was different, but one thing that was pretty fun is if your enemies do manage to take you out in combat and take you down, it jumps to a third-person camera and shows Batman collapse like a ragdoll, but sometimes weird things happen, like I'd get stuck in a funny position or something.
Oh, Batman's death scenes are kind of fun. My arm got stuck in the wall, but that's actually kind of hilarious.
And so that was kind of a neat effect that it kind of jumped out of the character and showed you them dropping when you were hurt. As it was an early build, there was still some minor crashes and glitches that we were experiencing in it, but overall, the game felt very impressive. And I was there with other people, so you can hear from them too what they thought about it.
You ready, Mateo?
Hell yeah.
Woo! That was an adventure.
I loved the combat. It's like a boxing workout. It was fun. You feel like really badass, beating people up. Yeah.
You can tell that Camouflage Studio had experience making superhero games from their time in Iron Man VR that they also developed. When with that experience, it does seem like Batman Arkham Shadow is going to be a pretty solid line to add to the VR realm. There are people that are going to be disappointed that it's Quest 3 only. There are people that are going to be disappointed that it's an Arkham game and is only coming to VR. But I think once they get into it and see what it's like actually being inside of that Arkham universe, anyone who truly loves Arkham would probably go get a headset just for this.
I think it'll be well received. You're gonna get some hate no matter what, because there's a huge flat gaming community that wanted the next Arkham game to be flat, and I don't see this making any sense to try to port. It would just be hard. Someone will do it, but it would be too hard. It wouldn't make sense, but I'm excited it's in VR, hoping that'll bring more people into VR too, so.
Ultimately, in the demo we were playing, there was a lot of prompts because it was explaining to you how the game works and what to do. And so I asked, are you gonna be able to disable some of those when you get more used to the game and you want it to be more immersive?
Do the prompts in combat ever like turn off, or can you disable like the prompts? Like if you look up and it says use your grapple here, like can those be turned off if you wanted it to be a bit more immersive even? Like
the reticle will never turn off. You'll be able to turn off the A button.
Okay.
They said that the reticle will kind of always be there so you see what you're looking at and what you're trying to like shoot a grapple up to, but you can't turn off the prompt. It's like press A to do this, press A to do this, which is also kind of a weird thing that grappling was the A button instead of the trigger when you were using it. Those are some minor nitpicks here and there, but there was just things that weren't quite as intuitive as I would have thought. Like when I reach up with that, it just felt like I should press the trigger. But when you see from the new gameplay trailer that launched after this, the game has you moving around a lot. It's definitely going to be meant for people who are a little more used to VR. Although we mentioned already, there is settings that you can change as there are with games, but people do have that tendency to always just go as immersive as possible and then worry about the sickness later. But the developers actually pointed out, we got to interview them after and ask some questions, that a lot of people seem to be doing well with the game, even though with all the movement, because the punching, the combat, it gets your whole body moving so much that it kind of helps your body think, okay, I'm moving, it's okay to see movement, which is one of the biggest reasons that people get motion sick in VR. It's just that disconnect between your brain seeing motion and your body being completely still. And in this game, you're pretty rarely going to be still while playing. This was only a taste that we got to see and still only an early build.
Oh no!
It's got me really excited about the final game that's coming, and I did try to get some information. They were very tight-lipped and careful about it.
I think it's our jobs to, through this gameplay trailer and through eventual reviews and everything, is to show the world why this game is worth buying a Quest 3 for. That's really, like, I think, yeah, the burden that we have.
And it'll work on the Quest 3S that's coming out before the game launches, right?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But the fact that it's a Quest 3 exclusive, launching potentially October, and all the rumors point to the Quest 3S being out by October, would mean that maybe this is a Quest 3 and Quest 3S exclusive, so people who are needing that cheaper headset or wanting to get something to replace their Quest 2 would still be able to play this game. And it runs on the same processor, so it should be able to run the game exactly the same. You would just get a little bit lower quality lenses and screens. But it got me more interested in the final game and seeing what it's like. So I'd love to know, what are you thinking out there about it now that you've heard a bit more about the game, how it's going to work, and you've seen more graphics, trailers, what's going on in it? Is this going to be a day one purchase for you? Do you have other questions that you can drop in the comments down below? I'll try to do my best to answer them from what I got to try so far. But overall, I'm feeling really positive about it, positive about the future of Quest 3 exclusive games, because hopefully with the 3S launching, there will still be a cheaper alternative, although it can risk alienating a lot of Quest 2 owners who aren't ready to upgrade yet. But the Quest 2 is starting to age and it's starting to show. So let me know what you think about all that in the comments down down below. But I want to say thank you once again for being here with me. It's because of all of you that we get to go check out these games early, give our feedback, and help shape the future of VR, which is a really cool thing to be able to do. So thank you once again, and I'll see you in another reality.